happening to you. If you're on those roadways, drive safely. Please drive safely. Humid out in the East Bay, a little colder in the city today. Good morning to all the overnight dancers, all the janitors, all the plumbers, all the train operators, BART conductors, everybody out there getting ready to get $1 on a Tuesday morning. Good morning to the Xfinity Mobile text line, as well as Twitch and YouTube, powered by First NorCal Credit Union. We're talking a lot of Niners here. Good morning to Spadoni, Lubman, and Shasky. We got Dave Flemming coming up in moments here as the Giants give up 18 hits yesterday to Tampa Bay. 18 hits, but the chat is humming right now as football season is back in full swing. We'll get Flem's thoughts on some of the quarterback stuff happening today.
Don't bury the lead.
The ball dog stuff.
We got to ask Flem about what's going on with him being a bat boy last night. Of course,
yeah. Well, he finished last in fantasy football. I want to know who was on his team. Who was his number one overall pick?
Well, who was in the league? Right?
Yeah.
Because if it was a bet where you had to be the bat boy or whatever,
had to be players in that league.
I gotta get into that. League. That's like a dream.
Always go
in uniform.
Oh, go back.
I mean, come on. Flem looked good in the uniform too, with the trot and everything. I mean, man, boy was looking svelte. Looked like one of the players.
Got the sound.
Hey, there's our bat boy. You know who that is? That's Dave Flemming. Having the time of his life.
He looks like he's having fun.
There's Dave.
He's not going to get a lot of rest. What, he lose a bet or something?
Yeah, you finished last in fantasy football. You got to be a bet boy.
Last in fantasy football. So there's so many questions with that, because I'm sure we could ignore the 18 hits the Giants gave up yesterday and the loss that they suffered at the hands of the Tampa Bay Rays. We don't have to start there. Let's start with a smile on our face. Dave Flemming, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us as always here in last place in fantasy football. So I don't know if I've ever done that, but I got questions. Shasky wants to know who's in the league. I want to know who's on your team. Who'd you take? Who let you down in fantasy football last year? Flemming, good morning. You look good running around the field there.
Let's before we got to clear the air here. First of all, number one, I guarantee you, sometime you have finished last. Like if you've played fantasy football for as long as all of us have, some years you're just not going to be.
Well, Flem,
Get him, Flem.
No. I said that because I was driving in this morning listening to Joe Spadoni and Joe Shasky and their crossover, and they both were saying, "Yeah, I've never finished last in fantasy football." And I said, as the kids say, that's cap. That's a lie. So I just felt like I'm going to follow along with them and say, "Yeah, I've never finished in last in fantasy football."
Yeah, and I lost the tiebreaker. It wasn't just me. I can't remember who also was last. So, and the other part about this that's important to point out is that Kipe and Mike and John and I on the night of the draft last year did a charity fundraising event, and I missed the draft. So I didn't get to pick my own team. I'm not going to name the guy who did pick it, but we designated a younger Giants staff member to pick our team for us, and that's what we were saddled with. And we started off. I think we started off the year 0-6.
Wow!
Oh my gosh!
Oh my god!
And we were just getting clowned. We were like the worst fantasy team I've ever seen.
Oh man!
And you know what? We made a couple trades, and I think we finished 5-7 or 5-8, whatever the
respectable record
was.
Yeah, that's respectable.
It was respectable, but the end result was what you saw out there last night.
Dave, you looked the part, though. Like the trot coming in multiple times, the double flap helmet. I mean, the whole outfit. You pulled it off. I'm being real. Like you looked good last night, my man. I was very proud of you.
Well, one thing, you cannot look cool in a double flap helmet. That's just, I don't care if Tom Cruise ain't looking good in a double flap helmet. That's a deal breaker right there, just off the top. So if you can just salvage it after that, you're ahead of the game. It's an MLB rule. You have to have the helmet on at all times while the game is being played. So I took it off in between innings to run out there and pick up the stuff from the on deck circle or whatever. You give your head a little breather. The thing is hot, so you take the helmet off in between innings. But while the game is going on, the team can get fined if you don't have a double flap.
Really?
Well, you know what, Flem? I want to know this. Did any of the players maybe toss their bat maybe 10 feet a little farther than they normally do? It's like, you know what? We got to put this announcer to work, man. See, let's test those hammies out.
It's a great question. Unfortunately, those innings were pretty quiet. So they didn't have that many chances. Of the many interactions I had before the game with the players, that I was getting dressed and they were laughing at me, and in the dugout we were high-fiving with everybody before the game. And Crawford made a point of coming over and he goes, "God, I really want to walk my first time up." I said, "You do?" He goes, "Because my shin guard's going one direction, the bat's going the other direction. I'm flipping the hand guard across the plate." You're going to have to cover a lot of ground to pick up my stuff.
Flem.
Unfortunately, he didn't walk.
The accessories are out of control. Not for the major leaguers. I'm talking about for the little leaguers. Because I'll be at first base, or maybe I'll be at third base, and it takes them 10 minutes to put the damn waffle thing on, where the sliding glove, and then none of them want to slide head first. It is out of control, the amount of accessories on a baseball diamond at this point.
They all want the gear. It's fun to have the gear. It's hard to blame kids because it's like you feel like you're a big leaguer. You got all the stuff, and they love it. So it's hard for me to blame the kids, but it's way out of control. It's unbelievable how much stuff these guys have.
They have a lot of stuff, but boy, the Giants, they've got a lot of L's right now in the month of August, and we can laugh and stuff. And look, you got to find some positivity somewhere here. But 18 hits they gave up yesterday after a rough series against the Rangers. They were able to salvage that Sunday game with the heroics of Patrick Bailey and Logan Webb's gym. I mean, what a day he had Sunday afternoon against the Rangers. They're leaking oil right now, Flip. Injuries, fatigue. It's dog days of August, and we talked about the schedule 3 weeks ago. It's not getting any easier for the Giants right now.
No, the schedule is it's not the right time to be struggling, and that's part of what's going on here. But that's not the only thing. I mean, the number one issue by far is the offense has just wildly underperformed, and it's 2 months now. This isn't 2 weeks or even a month. You go back to the end of June until now, and the Giants offense has been the lowest scoring offense in the game. And gosh, of all the scenarios that I thought for this year, that was not one that I thought was a possibility, because most nights you look at that Giants team and lineup, even with the young guys at the bottom of the order, and you see the veterans who have track records recently of success. It just doesn't look like a last place offense to me. So I don't know how you can really explain the fact that so many of these reliable guys, from Jock Peterson to J.D. Davis to Yastrzemski and Conforto and Wade and Tyro, all of them at the same time have just gone quiet. Now, you got a couple who are revving up again, and Wilmer swung the bat well, but you can't hang your hat on one guy for weeks and weeks and weeks, or even two. You need more contribution, and part of it is that the young guys have been just pressed into service, and some of them just clearly aren't ready for the full major league offensive experience. They need more work. You survive those as a team if your veteran guys are performing, and you survive. Hey, let's let Casey Schmidt work it out. Let's let Luis Matos figure this out and give him some rope and all. But you don't do that when all your top guys are underperforming, and it's hard to explain. You can't flip a switch. You can't say try harder. You can't say do better. It's just you got to try to be patient and hope that it comes back.
Yeah. Two guys I want to focus on. First, let's get to Patrick Bailey, because I do think it's important to be optimistic about him. Like, if you want to have ultimate faith in the Farhan regime, I think you could point to Patrick Bailey, and I think he's a great example of them sticking to their guns. They had Joey Bart. He was just drafted the year prior. I know it's too simplistic to say you don't ever draft a catcher because you got Joey Bart, because you've got many levels of minor leagues. But to draft this guy 1 year later at that spot so early in the draft, and then it feels like at every point they raised him into the, from single A to double A to triple A. The timing was perfect. He comes up, has instant impact on offense and defense. He's outstanding defensively. And it feels like he weathered the storm of the league adjusting to him, and now he's adjusted back. He looks like he is a keeper and an impact player for this team moving forward. Who knows how long? I am really encouraged by what I've seen with Patrick Bailey. And to me, I think it's the testament. If you're looking for one area to be optimistic on Farhan, I think you point to Patrick Bailey.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there are lots of areas that he's done an excellent job, but I do agree that this is becoming more and more of sort of the foundational piece of the Giants. And I don't say that lightly. I don't want to heap too much expectation on the guy, but just the defense and game calling and leadership alone, period, just that is going to be so valuable for this team for a long time. And you're right. I mean, it looks like the offense is going to be much better than any of us would have expected, at least this soon, based on what was going on in the minor leagues. Because you're right, he has made a nice adjustment back, and he's adjusting to playing so much. I mean, here we are. He's played all these games, 4 games in a row, and I know that sounds 4 games in a row. These guys are getting paid big money. When you're the catcher and you're young and you're not used to that, it is so taxing on him to be doing what they're asking him to do and to keep performing. I think you see moments where he does look beat down, but he doesn't. He wants to be out there. It could be the number one thing by far that comes out of this year. I mean, I hope the Giants go to the playoffs and make a run and see what happens, because I think they're equipped if they can get there. I think they're equipped to make some noise in the playoffs. But the number one thing that could come out of this year is his establishment as the building block for this franchise.
Dave Flemming here on the Morning Roast on 95.7 The Game. Look, Patrick Bailey's shining. Matos back in AAA. Casey Schmidt back in AAA. Luciano suffers a hamstring in AAA. And we know what they're doing with the platooning and the openers. And it seems like a few guys are not happy with their roles. Alex Wood was visibly frustrated Saturday night after going to say the only reason why he pitched that ninth inning was for his teammates here. So as a fan like me, because I've complained, maybe this is the way to maximize this unit. Maybe you have to bullpen it 3 times a week. Maybe you have to platoon it here. But I wonder how many free agents it's going to attract in the offseason and how many people will be willing to play this style that's just so different than what we've seen in the past, especially for all the traditionalists when it comes to baseball, Flip.
Yeah, I mean, I would say a couple things. Number one, money talks in this game. So I think, players aren't happy with their roles when they're not performing and whatnot. That happens. But ultimately, free agency, the Giants are going to be fine. It's a good destination for free agents. Players like playing here. This franchise takes better care of its players off the field than any, I think, that I've ever been around in any in the game right now. So I don't think you should worry about that. I don't. I think they're fine in that way. They are playing a different style, and part of that is dictated by when they signed Stripling and Manaea, and DeSclafani was coming back, and they have Alex Wood. The goal and the hope this year was that every single one of those guys would be an overachieving starting pitcher. That's what Giants would have a tough decision because they have too many guys pitching well. And for the first few months of the year, none of those guys were pitching well in that starter's role. Now, the way they've adjusted things, Sean Manaea has turned into a true weapon. He's pitched great. Ross Stripling's gotten his whole season stabilized. DeSclafani just it's going to be a lost year for him because of the health thing. But Alex Wood, they found ways, I think, to get the best out of Alex Wood. It's still been an up and down ride. He's definitely cranky about all of it, and that's his right. But I mean, I think they're putting him in a position to succeed. So I think it's been born of necessity. I think you've seen the Giants this year. If they have a full complement, they want an everyday lineup. If they have a full starting rotation, they want those guys to start games. But they're adjusting and trying to make the best of what they have.
I'm looking at this team, and there's been a lot of roster transactions. Bonte referenced like Luciano going down and Matos going down. And then Wade Meckler coming up. I can't remember a guy flying through the system. Maybe Pablo, going from single A all the way to the majors in like one, calendar or baseball season is kind of crazy. I'm excited to see the kid play. Hopefully gets a run here. Do you expect them to be yo-yoing these guys back and forth? Or do you think all those guys that have gone down will get a chance to come back up?
Yeah, I think, I don't know that that's guaranteed just because of the new rules on September rostering. The roster, you only get 2 extra guys.
That's kind of weak.
In September. So in the old days, all of them would come
40.
back up. Right. But now you only get 2 extra spots. So the difference now is that September AAA baseball runs as usual. So the AAA season tracks with the big league season, essentially. And so those guys get to keep playing. So if you do have a need, the Giants would not hesitate to call one of those guys back up. And I would say, look, I'm not picking on you, but I would not call it yo-yoing, because I think all those young guys got a really good long runway chance to establish themselves. This wasn't Luciano was the difference, and that was only because the Giants wanted him to play some second base games before. I mean, basically the plan with Luciano was go down for 10 days, play 6 times at second, and come right back up.
Gotcha.
And then be the Matthias spot, be the whatever, so they wanted Luciano he literally had never played a single game ever at any level other than shortstop, ever. And so I think they just thought, this is unfair for this guy. We now all of a sudden we need him to play second, and we got Tyro came back a little quicker. So, they were thinking, gosh, maybe on the days where Tyro can play short, Luciano can play second against a lefty. You can argue with that idea, but they wanted him to play a few games in the minor leagues. And it's just a bad luck that he got hurt.
Yeah.
He's out.
No doubt.
But I think those other guys, Schmidt and Matos, those guys got a real chance, and they weren't ready yet. And they've had great minor league seasons, and their future can still be really bright, but it's hard to blame the Giants for getting them back down to the minor leagues to try to get going again.
Dave Flemming here on the roast. We'll leave you with this one here. We know they have 2 against the Tampa Bay Rays coming up here, a night game tonight, 6:45, and of course a day game before getaway day. And then they go to Atlanta, and they play the Braves 6 of the next 9. Sandwiched in between that is Philadelphia. You get the Reds and the Cubs, who are trailing the Giants in this wild card race. But I want to focus on the Braves. I don't know if you caught any games this year for them, Flem, with your ESPN duties. Boy, this lineup, I think Giants fans are going to see what this lineup's all about. Matt Olson having an MVP year. Obviously, we saw him in the Bay Area with the A's, 43 jacks, 107 RBIs. Austin Riley, Albies, Ronald Acuna Jr., Ozuna. Is this by far and away the best team, or at least the best lineup in the National League that you've seen this season?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible what they've built. And, some of that, they deserve all the credit in the world, but some of it is it's just, they hit on all these guys all at once. And it reminds you in a little way of what happened with the Giants when, Kane and Lincecum and Bumgarner and Posey and Crawford all, in the span of 5 or 6 drafts, you hit on all those guys. And then they filled in the blanks with those other stars. But it reminds you of that a little bit. Like, man, how did they pull that off where all those guys turned into great players? And now, once you get that foundation, that's what's happened with the Dodgers too. The Dodgers laid the foundation with some young guys who turned into stars, and then it just then building a great team becomes so much easier when you have those pieces in place. And the Braves have made some mistakes, and they've had some pitching injuries, and they've signed some guys who haven't worked out, and none of it matters because you have that foundation of stars. And it's the envy of everybody in the game. They're set up to win for a long time. They roll the same team. It's the easiest team to manage in the big leagues. They roll the same team out there every night. They don't have to do any of the maneuvering that teams like the Giants have to do. And it's going to be a huge challenge for the Giants to go there and hang with that team. And they got to they have to be swinging the bats much better. And so for me, they're playing the Rays here these next 2 nights, and these are important games.
Yep.
But more than anything else, you must build some positivity at the plate before getting on that airplane after tomorrow afternoon, because you got to bring your bats to Atlanta and Philly. You are not going to win those games 2-1 and 3-2 and have a good road trip. You're not. You just aren't.
No doubt about that. Dave Flemming here on the roast. By the way, one of our roasters here asked if you were going to the Ryder Cup in Italy, would you be on duty for that? What's your answer to that? Italy would be fun.
That's a tough one for me to pull off in September. I'll be back for playoffs if we make it. No, unfortunately, I won't be. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Ryder Cup in Rome?
Oh, my
Sounds
gosh.
incredible.
I'm having FOMO now. I was in Italy last year, Flem. Oh, my gosh. Lake Como, Amalfi Coast. I didn't even say Toronto.
I remember that. You had the top down in your little Italian sports car, and we're tooling around. I remember that.
Yeah, the European extravaganza. Now, some people were like, hey, stay in Italy. Don't come back to these airways here. But, I made myself back. And maybe one day I'll get back out there. But question that the Roasters had. They care about you and wanted to see if you're going to be in Italy. But the Ryder Cup, you excited about that? When's that happening, Shasky? September, yeah, you just said that. September. Yeah. You haven't talked about, but Shasky's kind of down on golf, it feels like.
No, it's just, I feel like they've diluted their own product at this point, and it's just, I'm so confused. The schedule doesn't make sense. Elevated events, special events, whatever the hell they're calling them, I don't know. I just want to see the best players compete 10 times a year. 5 of them being majors, 5 of them being like, the Riviera, places like that. Right, Flem? Like, we just want to see the best.
Yeah, it's been a bad year it's been a bad year for golf. They have hurt themselves. They have.
Totally.
There's no way around it, and you don't see enough of all the great players together, and it's hard not to be down about what's happened in the world of golf. And, even this Ryder Cup thing is, who's going to be on the team?
Is Brooks even available? Like Brooks?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you don't know that, the fact that you, an avid golf fan, still aren't 100% sure about that tells you
exactly
all you need to know. I mean, once the Ryder Cup starts, we'll all watch.
Of course.
It's fun, and the majors have been fun, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's been a bad year for the sport. It has been.
Spadoni's in my ear asking do you have any bets with Phil Mickelson out there outstanding? And it's a bad joke.
I mean, how about that? How about that number?
I mean,
is that
Flem?
If you really look at the details of those allegations, I don't know if they're true, but that is kind of hard. I really can't even fathom.
It's a sickness.
If that's true.
I don't know how you make 43 bets in a day. Live betting, prop bets. That's a lot of bets.
And then
I've gambled here and there, but I have 43. Wow.
I watched the Bryson Phil thing, and I'm telling you, I now believe he did all those things that we're talking about. Yes.
I mean, 43 bets a day where each bet is 6 figures plus. The Pirates are playing the Reds today. How about $200,000 on that one?
A 9:35 game in PNC Park.
Insane.
It's the sickness.
Oh my God.
Oh man. Well, Flynn,
have a good one, buddy.
We'll talk to you from the East Coast next week.
Yep.
We'll talk to you from Philadelphia, I believe. Yeah, they'll be in Philadelphia after playing the Braves this weekend. But 2 against the Rays. Giants got to get on track here. They could fall out of this race here. They are struggling, but always good to have some laughs with you, Flemming. Make sure you're draft your own team this year in fantasy football, all right?
I'm drafting my own team. We're doing the draft after a day game at Wrigley, so I'm there. I'll be there. I'll be drafting my own team.
Nice.
And one thing Phil Mickelson never did was pick up a rosin bag in the on-deck circle.
Oh, my God.
That's a walk-off.
Yeah, that's a bat drop. That's a bat flip.
That's a walk-off. We'll talk to you next week,
See you, buddy.
See you guys.